All day Wednesday. Sorry, no discounts on Wednesday.
It
No
is the
discounts
first
on
hump day of the year.
First hump day.
Hump, 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 hump.
Welcome
hump.
to Chaotic Radio.
Hump, 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 hump.
The best radio station on the
Guess
internet.
what day it is? Guess
Hump
what
day.
day it is? Said the camel. It is hump day.
Oh, and you know what else?
What? I
It's a
got
moment
nothing.
of silence.
For Adam West.
Just kidding. Hey, today.
Come on, Granddad. What's today?
Today we got the snack crunching, cracker crunching Mike Engelbert. You know, he was the catcher for the Bad News Bears, the original.
He also, and if I was his parents, I would have strangled him. He also got cast in Jaws 2 and then announced, I'm going to quit it to be a real boy.
That sounds like Pinocchio.
I would have strangled him in the driveway.
Okay, we're going to bust his chops on that one when he
Who
calls in.
says no to the 10th highest grossing film in the 1970s? More importantly, Jaws 2, which is turning 40 this year.
40 anniversary.
I'll say, hey, Engelbert, this is the 40th anniversary of your worst decision.
But, you know, this movie is an iconic movie. When I was in junior high, we went and saw it. And
you saw the version with the guy from Sling Blade?
We saw... Wait, which guy from Sling Blade?
Oh, my taters.
Billy
Bob Thornton started the remake of...
he did he played the Walter Matthau part.
Yes, sir. Terribly.
And who was in that one? What kids were in it?
All nobodies.
All nobodies?
Yeah.
Who played the Jodie Foster part?
Weirdly enough, she reprised her role. She made you think at age 52 she was a 12-year-old girl. First of all, Jodie Foster, moron, was not in the Bad News Bears. That was Tatum O'Neal.
Oh, Tatum O'Neal. Excuse me.
No,
Excuse me. That's right. She would because Jodie Foster would be a little older.
Correct.
It was Tatum O'Neal. That's right. And Jack Earl Haley.
Jackie Earl Haley.
He was the bad
from
kid.
Damnation Alley and Rorschach from Watchmen.
Oh man,
I interviewed him, by the way. Very nice guy.
He's very cool. He was always like and a cutter. He was a cutter in Breaking Away with Dennis Quaid.
He was one of the cutters. Very good.
He always played that dirty kid, that bad kid, and that's what I like. Wow, I'd be scared to hang out with that kid. I might get in trouble.
He's amazing. He's in a Oscar-nominated movie as a child molester called Little Children. They think he's a child molester, and he moves into the neighborhood, and everybody's taking steps to shun him actively. It's a great movie.
But was he innocent?
Well, I don't want to give it away, but yes.
Oh, this movie hasn't been released yet.
No, it was released 10 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, it turns out whatever he did, it wasn't molesting any child. It was something he did to himself.
Oh.
And he's sad. This is what got him.
Was this a true story that happened?
No, but it's a great movie. I mean, it's there's a woman, the chick from Titanic, whose name I'm blanking on. Rose in Titanic. What's her name?
Is that the old lady?
No, well, yes, but it's her as a young girl, the British girl. What's her name?
I'm drawing a blank.
Leonardo DiCaprio's girl.
Yeah, she did a movie. She did a movie called The Little Children, where she plays a TV news producer, and she has her entire life dubbed. She has Bill Curtis. You know Bill Curtis from all the crime shows. Bill Curtis narrates her life in her own head. It's a great movie.
Wow.
Called Little Children. Fantastic movie. That brought him back. They cast him in that. And after that, Zack Snyder saw Little Children and cast him as Rorschach.
Aha. And then he plays the new Freddy Krueger as well.
He, as terrible as the remake of Nightmare on Elm Street.
It's kind of, when it's so iconic from Robert Englund, because you can see his face through the makeup.
He's quite good in it. I mean, he's good. He's better than he has any right to playing the new Freddy. And he has a different choice of voice than the original Freddy and all that. He's no Robert Englund, but it's a really smart, interesting performance.
And he was also in Lincoln, which Daniel Day-Lewis was in that.
Who did he play in Lincoln?
Daniel Day-Lewis played Lincoln.
I know that.
But
who
he
did that
he
kid?
played one of the senators, I think.
Okay.
And he got nominated, an Oscar nominated.
Because he got Oscar nominated for Little Children. I don't think he was nominated for Lincoln.
Yeah, I think he was.
Because he always plays creeps.
Yeah.
And since he came back and when Zack Snyder cast him as Rorschach, he went to this bounce where he got like 10 movies in a row, including Freddy Krueger.
Yes. He Robbie Rist was telling me that
he would have grown up with him, wouldn't he?
Yeah. Robbie said he talked to him. He said he hadn't acted. He was absent from acting for
30 years.
over 10 or 15 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And they brought him back for Little Children, and then that got him Watchmen.
It sure did.
Because I know for a fact he was nominated for Little Children.
So he made a good comeback.
That's a great comeback, actually. Although Freddy Krueger was terrible, it had nothing to do with him. He's actually very good. He gives him kind of a nasally performance.
Yeah, it does. Okay, we're Gary Lee Cavagnero. That's Engelbert's real name. Mike Engelbert. You can see the baseball card.
You can play that song. That's public domain.
Now, what songs did they have in that? I know they got a lot of YouTube clips. I was watching last night with a lot of 70s songs. Because this is mid-70s, man. A lot of cool shit came out in 1976.
Grizzly, the highest grossing independent movie up to that point. Grizzly came out with the poster by Neil Adams.
Now, who starred in Grizzly?
Starred Christopher. What was his name? Christopher. Come to me. He's the lead. Christopher. Remember, he's the blonde wife. Christopher George.
Oh,
married to Linda Day George.
Oh, yeah.
So he was the top billed. Second billed was Andrew Prine, who I interviewed for my Jaws book. And I forgot who the third billed guy was. Doesn't matter. The Grizzly was the star.
Yeah, the Grizzly.
That
was back in the day when no CG, none of that. Everything was real. You had to train a real bear.
It was the goriest PG movie up until that point. It was gorier than Jaws.
It's always gory to get shredded by a bear.
The bear and the kid. They threw a lot of gore in there. After Jaws got away with so much gore because the MPAA wasn't going to mess with Universal, Universal wanted to make their $9 million back or whatever, which was what it cost.
Right.
So Universal had gore in there. The human head, human arm, legs.
So let me ask you this, Patrick. This is something you would know. Maybe Jeff even might know. Did they actually film the Jaws scene in the Universal Studios where you drive the tram through and you see the shark?
They did on the fourth one, made 30 years ago, the one with Mario Van Peebles. One of my aunts took the tour, and she said they had the shark impaled and vomiting blood when the tour tram came by. They were shooting the end of the movie, and they didn't even bother hiding Jaws. And my friggin' aunt was saving footage for Magnum PI or something and didn't photograph the shark.
Wow.
I'm thinking, even when I thought of her story when I was doing that book, it's like, damn it, couldn't you have taken one shot I could have used in my book?
Yeah, because I remember going there as a kid, and it would, just freak me out because it had the guy on the jetty or whatever.
Yes, yeah. No, that was actually shot in Martha's Vineyard.
Oh, okay.
The guy,
but it wasn't in the studio.
No. I'll tell you, the scenes in the movie that were shot on the back lot include they shot in daylight the scene where they found the dead guy's boat and they found the head, but that was all a daytime shot to save money. Spielberg realized it would be much scarier if it were at night and there's fog, and that's when they find the boat at night and he swims under the boat.
Right.
Finds the head. By putting that scene at night, and that was the second time they shot it.
It's always scarier at night.
The guy on the jetty was shot a couple times. There were little kids all over the scene, and that was pushing. The guy on the jetty gets eaten, and the shark is pushing the guy out to sea, and he grabs the little kid. He grabs the chief's son and pushes him out of the way when the shark is taking him out to sea. And the MPA looked at them and they said, "You've got to be kidding. You're not going to get a PG with this because it's immediate child in danger from a guy vomiting blood."
Yeah.
So the version of the Jetty you see was the second time around where they downplayed the kids.
Wow. Great facts.
Yeah.
Now,
In my book, I run shots from both times they shot the attack. The second time was much blood. The first time was much bloodier. And the MPAA they told them, listen, you're going to get an automatic R if you put a child that close to blood and violence.
Now, is the MPAA, are they still doing stuff like that?
They are, but they've always given the studios a little bit of a pass. And what happened with Grizzly has a little boy being eaten with the bear dropping his severed arm on camera. And Grizzly's argument is you're picking on us because we're a no-budget production, and you're letting Jaws slide because it's Universal. Well, that's the truth. And
it is.
They tried to fight him, and then they allowed... Again, Grizzly is a huge gore fest because it came the year after Jaws, and they were trying to have just as much gore as Jaws.
Yeah.
And it had a little bit more gore than Jaws, and Universal let them slide, because basically they made that argument. The MPA let them slide because they kept saying, you gave Universal all this gore, a naked lady, a dead kid. And it was true. What could they say? So they let him slide.
Yeah, the one scene I remember from Jaws, and it gave me nightmares, was when the guy, and I don't know his name, you probably do, when he slid off the boat. And
Robert Shaw's Quint, right into his mouth.
He went right into Jaws' mouth, and he started vomiting blood. Yeah. Oh, that scene bothered me for a long time.
He spits the blood on the lens. That's how.
Yeah, that's what's cool, man. A lot of what flavor was that? Flavored blood.
Well, they said the guy who filmed the movie, he told me that the stuntman could double. Dick Butler was the guy who doubled him. Remember, you see a long shot of Robert Shaw in the mouth get pulled under. That wasn't Robert Shaw. That was a stunt guy who looked so much like him we could double him up close.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
And then the whole crew thought he drowned because he was in the mouth and the mouth went under. What he did is once he was out of once the camera caught him going underwater, he pulled himself out of the mouth, swam to the other side of the barge, and when everyone thought he drowned, he tapped Spielberg on the shoulder from behind. Spielberg used that scene. Spielberg uses that scene in the 1989's Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, where Sean Connery and his friends are mourning Indiana Jones because they see him in the tank go over the cliff. But Indiana Jones has hung on to the cliff, climbed up the other side, and they all take off their hats in honor of Indiana Jones, not knowing he's directly behind them. I'm convinced. I've never heard evidence that's why Spielberg used that. But when I heard that Jaws story, I realized when I was doing my book, oh my God, he used the stuntman swimming to the other side of the barge when they thought he drowned. He used that in the last Indiana Jones up to that point.
And that Jaws scene was filmed where?
The Jaws scene where it goes under, that was all Martha's Vineyard.
Oh, wow.
Steven Spielberg wanted the credits to end when the guys hit shore.
But was it a mechanical shark?
Yes. And in fact, Spielberg, because of the shark had just eaten Quint, when the shark surfaces coming for the sheriff, one of the cool details you'd notice when you watched it was all the rotting teeth in the shark's mouth. You see all the bits of flesh in the shark's mouth. What Spielberg did is tore up a chicken and individually shoved pieces around the shark's teeth. So he had raw meat around, from when he ate Quint when he comes from Brody.
That was a raw chicken, though.
Yes.
Right? So it does look like flesh.
Yeah, it looks like flesh and the shark's
That's
teeth.
great. And remember, if we ever make our low-budget movie,
Horror, yeah.
always use raw chicken.
Raw chicken everywhere, boys.
Raw chicken and blood. That's a good effect.
Yeah.
Raw chicken.
Raw chicken.
Tastes like raw chicken.
I like my chicken cooked.
I like my chicken hot.
Hey, we got some good guests this week. We have the Brew Witches coming in tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yes, the Brew Witches. Oh, my God. Speaking of brew and beer, it's time to plug our sponsor.
Yes.
Boy, oh boy. Hey, Jeff, I'm a little upland and I'm really thirsty for a craft beer. Where do I go?
You go to Pacific Wine Merchants in downtown Upland at the Metrolink station. How
Num.
easy is it to find that?
And 2nd Avenue.
Yes. In fact, you're going to be there today. Betty Beware is cutting your hair, you lucky fella.
Yeah, you got to go
Yes.
downtown. You could stop in. I don't suggest that you drink anything from the counter, but you could have a fine cigar.
Yeah, you know what? They have great San Pellegrino right there.
Yep.
There you go.
So that's what I'll be having.
Delicious mineral water at the
At the
Yeah.
wine cellar.
at
Yeah.
the Upland Wine Merchant.
And then this morning I was going to, but I was running a little bit late, but I was going to go see my friend Jamal at
Oh, New York Bagels Company.
on Archibald and Foothill.
The master and creator of the
Oh.
Everything Bagel,
And
Jamal.
I can't stop bragging about my favorite breakfast sandwich. Blueberry bagel with melted cheese, egg, and a sausage. Oh, boy.
I will wrestle you because I like the Everything Bagel, which Dan
I'm
introduced
an
us to.
everything bagel too.
Everything Bagel. Jamal, if you're listening, we love you. Thank you very much.
They use water from New York, not from California. That's what makes a New York bagel.
He had to use California water one time, and this is why I like the guy because he's honest.
Oh, he told you.
Because I wanted a plain bagel. I go, can I get 2 plain bagels? He goes, no, I don't think you want them because I ran out of New York water and I had to use California water. So he
Wow.
goes, so they're really not New York bagels. And
You got
I
a
go,
rancho bagel.
Oh, you're so honest, you know. What a great guy.
Even
Yeah.
the chance of hurting his own business, he was
I
telling me.
know.
He risked that. You know what? Give me that IE homeboy special, man.
Yeah.
Okay, what about our adult diaper sponsor? Oh, we never got that one yet, did we?
I could get you one because I've worn them, and I still have a pack at home.
We need Deborah Lamb back on the show and her baby tea.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that was, when you're comatose, you're in at least a 30-day coma. Like Dan, put on the adult diaper, the new Huggies for men.
They call them urine my dreams.
The geriatric diapers for men.
It wasn't urine my dreams; it was shit in my dreams. My poor wife.
Oh. Dan's coma dream.
Our poor listeners. Oh, boy, we just put pictures in their head, didn't we?
Dan the man rubbed pooping his pants in Dreamland.
Oh man, my nurse is. God bless him in Pomona.
Oh, yeah, God bless him. My
Valley.
mom was a nurse. I thank you for the shout out for nurses.
Yeah, no, they do a wonderful job, and they're thankless. They just they say, "Hey, this is our job. This is what we do." I go, "I just made a mess out of my whole bed." They go, "That's okay. We'll change it. We'll put you on a Gardy, and we'll change your bedding." And they had to clean up after me because I exploded. There was crap and piss everywhere.
That sounds like the jerky boy. I'm fitting a crap in my own piss. Just like Saul Rosenberg. Oh, well, my voice is a little better today.
It is better today.
Oh, God, it was so scratchy. Oh, man. It was, I sounded like, Damien Dante.
Yeah, you're
I sounded like the little girl from Frankenstein.
Oh, my God. Donald, my brother Donald was so amused we were telling that story yesterday.
We can tell
That's
that
a great
every
story.
day and laugh. It's funny every time we
She
tell that
thought
story.
she was safe as hell. And then these kids are suddenly nosing around because Tom Hannon wants the little girl from Frankenstein. And Tom Hannon is telling my brother Don, don't call her on it. She probably thinks she is the little girl from Frankenstein.
There's a lot of delusional extras out there.
Yeah, they really are. You'll see them, they'll march over and sit down in Supergirl's chair, right?
I'm an actress. And there I was. Jane Fonda was there, and you could see me if you look in the right corner for a split second, you could see me walk behind her.
That's like me
and if you look real close, I was looking right in the camera.
That's like you with who?
with my Corey and Corey movie that I did.
Oh yeah,
back
the two
in
cords.
the 90s. I mean, the camera just went right by me. I just said, "Hey," and that's it.
Like, who's the jerk looking into the camera? Who didn't edit that?
I don't know how he didn't.
Did you
wind up
touch
on
Corey
editing
Haim
flow.
and tell him he was about to be in trouble?
No, I just did some lines of coke with him. I'm not kidding.
Really? You did coke with Corey Haim? He's the dead one. He can't sue. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Wow. You did rails of coke with the kid from Lost Boys.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Was it your coke or his? Oh, you can't
It
tell?
was mine.
Wow, no wonder he's willing to share. Otherwise, you go back to extras holding. I can get high on my own. Wow.
I got paid with a Subway sandwich.
Wow.
A Jarrett footlong, huh?
Yeah.
Free footlongs in this white van with no windows in it.
From Jared, yeah.
What
He
happened to that
delivered
guy?
it himself.
Jared's in the jug. He's in jail now.
Oh, he's in. Oh, yeah, he's doing prison time.
Do you see
huh?
when they threw him in prison? I pulled out a page from that DC comic where Superman and Wonder Woman thank Jared Fogle for his help in catching crooks.
Oh my God, are you serious?
Yes. Look at my page. It has Superman shaking Jared's hand, thanking him for his assistance.
Wow, that was the. How embarrassing!
Superman shaking a child molester's hand.
How embarrassing to have your pitch man.
Yeah.
Fuck up like that.
He was using their money to go after young children, you know?
That's pretty sad.
Isn't it? Isn't it?
I thought Jared was like this cool dude who just lost a lot of weight by eating subs.
I never thought he was cool.
Well, he's kind of nerdy, but I'm like, hey, he lost a lot of weight.
I thought he was
you
a
know?
lucky fat guy. Instead, he was a lucky child molester.
He wasn't that lucky.
No, no.
He's probably being molested right now as we speak.
And Fat Jared always looked like a child molester to me anyway. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, he does. He's not. He was just a fat slob. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't work out. All he did was lose weight, and now he's just a big bag of skin. You know?
Right.
No, I've lost a lot of weight, but it's mainly due to my illness. And I remember the first time when I woke out of my comatose state, my nurse, big black dude named Mike, great guy,
Wow.
took me into the shower. He goes, "We're going to shower." And I didn't know where I was. I didn't know what day it was. I didn't know anything. And he goes,
How'd you know he was a nurse?
I didn't know he was. So I'm in the shower, and he turns the shower on. He's got this plastic uniform over his nurse suit.
Right.
And you know how they have that red hanging wire to alert the nurses?
Oh.
So I pulled it, and I go, "There's a black dude in the shower." And she's like,
They said he's your nurse, racist.
she goes like, "Daniel, that is your nurse." It's Michael. He's okay.
Oh, no.
And I go, "No,
You did this
I'm
right in
not
front of the
used
poor
to
guy?"
taking showers with black dudes, or any dudes for that matter."
This is my life now.
But he was a good guy, you know.
Yeah, after you called the nurse to complain about the other nurse.
Yeah. Well, I called the nurse's station. That's where it rang to.
Why did you think he was cleaning up your poop? He was just a big fan of Dan Rupp?
Yeah. Yeah, you know my fan base. It's huge.
Well, you lucky dog, you're going to have your hair cut by Betty Beware. That'll be fun.
Oh, yeah, I can't wait. At noon.
Yeah, she's rocks.
Yeah. Hopefully, she'll massage my head and what did I just say?
Yeah, massage
Rub
your
the
head.
follicles.
Wait, can we say that on the air? Holy uncensored radio, Batman.
Little shop of hairdos in Upland.
Wow,
on
that is so
2nd
charming.
Street
That is so
and
charming.
9th.
That's very cool.
So yeah, no, she gave me a good deal. So it's just as cheap as going to great cuts or super cuts, and I have to keep my hair short because I have seborrhea dermatitis, which is dandruff that gets stuck in your hair follicles and causes sores. So
We probably didn't need that on the air, but hey.
hey, you know what? Hey, it's just
With no secrets amongst friends.
yes, I it's just health.
Boy, I love dead air.
I don't know what he's doing.
Jeff just ran into the booth and he's mumbling numbers at Dan.
Yeah, he doesn't realize I have earphones on.
He's been texting like a 13-year-old girl for the last 10 minutes. Who are you texting, Billy? Nobody.
Don't be sexting my black nurse.
Don't be sexting his black nurse. That's not Mike is not yours.
I'm texting your black nurse.
Mike is black nurse.
That's Pomona Recovery Hospital.
Pomona Recovery.
This is your job to get a hold of this woman. You have her number.
Oh, yeah, I'll call her.
You need to call her because this is before we started the show. We've been doing this for almost 4 months now.
Have
it's
we?
time. Yes, we have.
When did we start? What was our first day?
It was September, right, Dan?
Fuck if I know. I don't know.
Well, this isn't Mindy here. This is the woman whose birthday party I took you to. This is Tanya Lamani.
No, it isn't.
Yeah, it is. Take a look. I'm telling you, because she was replacing Tanya for the day. So you're moving over the wrong hot chick, older hot chick.
This is what Mindy gave to us.
I know, because it was the only thing she
But
had.
that's not her on the.
That's Tanya Lamani.
Mindy dressed up like her.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm not saying her, Mindy.
Yes.
Mindy gave this
I will
to
get
us.
in hold of Mindy. Don't worry.
Yeah, you've been saying that for 3 months. Douche.
I've got us some pretty good guests.
Well, get her in here. We want to hear those stories about Elvis.
Yes.
And
Elvis.
Then we could get that other girl that has
She used to
stories
date
about
Elvis, and she was a really hot robot in the original Westworld.
Wow.
Still looks good. She's a dancer, so she looks great.
Yeah, I'm a dancer too, but I don't look that great.
I would have been surprised to know you were a dancer.
I do a really good white man overbite.
Nicely done, sir. Our radio audience will love that entirely.
Well, that's an old Billy Crystal line.
A white man overbite?
Yeah, the white man overbite. I forget what movie that was from. Shit. Sleepless in Seattle? I don't know. I forget.
Billy Crystal's not in Sleepless in Seattle. That's Tom Hanks, you dode.
Oh,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Get it right.
Get it right.
He's been in so many movies.
Wrong, beloved white man, racist.
Yeah, I'm a white racist. I hate white people, black people.
Well, Bruce Jingles, the comedian, says you're an asshole.
Bruce Jingles loves me.
He goes, Dan Rupp, that guy's an asshole. He told me that.
He sounds like an astonishingly good
that-
judge of character.
That was at the what's that comedy club at the mall?
The Improv.
Yeah, at the Improv. He told me that after his show.
Yeah, I just saw him a couple of weeks ago. He opened up for my friend Jamal Coleman.
Not our Jamal who makes the bagels.
No.
Okay.
This is a guy. You know, it's so hard to be politically correct. This is a black Jamal.
Okay.
Jamal Coleman, and he's a stand-up comic. He has a radio show in L.A. It's called L.A. Radio, and I've been on his show, and he's gonna come on mine next time he has a show. He said he would.
Now, you appear on Cat Monroe's show, too, right?
Yeah,
So you're double timing us.
I've been on Cat Monroe's. I've been on Zig show. I've
Roy
been
and
on
Jimmy?
Roy and Jimmy. I've been on Dutchie's show.
Dutchie has his own show on this station?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought so, but it wasn't sure.
78 RPM.
Oh, yeah, okay, cool.
And we just talk punk rock. You know, he's.
I like when Dutchie was playing on the Christmas party. He was playing the Dickies Christmas album. I thought that was really cool.
Oh yeah, that one was great.
Yeah, you know what? I don't want to get into the whole show, but yeah, no, I bowed out early. I was gonna stay late, but I bowed out early.
Well, was it because of you know who or?
Yeah, you know who.
Okay, yeah. We're on Team Dan Rupp here, Mister.
Yeah. But no, so no, I've double timed on a lot of shows. I've gone out to the streets and done, out in the street interviews, and I've just, I worked a lot with Blaine Humbles for a couple of years.
Who is Blaine Humbles?
He was original owner of this station.
Oh, wow.
And Blaine Humbles is the one guy that could run a show by himself, sitting right where Jeff is, not on his phone. So he could totally.
Jeff is sexting somebody. Jeff, who's Phil?
Phil McCracken?
Oh.
So Blaine could totally just run the whole show with his laptop and what's in front of him in the studio. And
Really?
then I could come in.
Whoa, we got a call. We interrupt this program for a special call from the Bad News Bears from 1976. Bam. Here we go.
First of all, let's introduce him. This is, say his name.
His name is Gary Lee Cavagnaro.
Gary Lee
Did I say that
Cavagnaro
right?
played Engelbert, the heavy-set, chocolate-snorting fat kid from the original Bad News Bears of Walter Matthau and Tatum O'Neill. Not only that, he appeared in the hillbilly comedy Drive-In. He also appeared in... Hey, Gary, are you with us?
I'm with you.
Talk to us, my friend.
How you doing,
Hey,
Gary?
Never heard it described as hillbilly comedy, but I'm with you.
Yeah, in fact, one of the weird things, Gary, about Drive-In is it was an acclaimed script with all black kids. Southern producers bought it and they changed it to all white kids. Drive-In. Did you know that? No, it's a true story. It was
No, I did not.
The script was originally set at an urban drive-in, and they changed it to a southern drive-in, thinking it would bring in a wider audience, and apparently it did. Now, one of the stories we were talking about you is you were originally cast in Jaws 2, correct?
Yes.
Why did you do it?
Why, Gary?
Why did or didn't I?
Why didn't you do Jaws 2?
Well,
I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but
I'm trying. The reality of it is, I decided. The sanitized version is, I decided I wanted to be a kid for a while.
wow.
I had gotten home from doing Bad News Bears and Drive-In, and life had gotten back to normal, and was in high school. Had been, I'm from Texas. Football is king in Texas, as everyone knows.
Yep.
And I had gotten moved up to the varsity football team as a sophomore, which was a huge honor. Only very few people in those days played varsity sports as sophomores.
Wow.
In fact, in my high school, the last person that had done it was Doak Walker and Kyle Rhodes. Were the last sophomores who had played. And I and a couple of my best friends got moved up as sophomores, and I wanted to play football that year.
Wow.
And chose to do that and be a normal kid as opposed to being gone for 6 months doing a movie.
Wow. Now, Bad News Bears was your first movie.
Yes.
So a lot of kids. Did everybody get a Taft-Hartley on that? That was their first. A lot of these kids was their first time filming, right?
Including yours.
With dialogue.
Right. Alfred Lutter, who played Ogilvy, and Jackie Haley, who was Kelly Leak, and obviously Tatum. They had all done major motion pictures before. But yeah, they took the rest of us, I think all of the rest of us, there may have been one or two of the others who had done something, but they took all the rest of us down to the courthouse as a group and went through the process. And, it's the Jackie Cooper, Shirley Temple law out there in California.
Oh, yeah, the Jackie Coogan law, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I said Cooper, I meant Coogan.
Well, they were both screwed.
Yeah, their parents basically went through all their money, so they put the money in block trust that can't be touched until we're 18, which at that time was the age of consent. Now I guess it's 21. I don't know if the laws have changed since then or not, but put it in a blind trust where 80% of it would be blocked until we were 18 years of age, and then we could get it after that. So, it was almost like a field trip. We all went down there as a group, and so.
Well, but people forget what a great script by Bill Lancaster, Bad News Bears, was. I mean, it's a very dark movie. She's basically Tatum O'Neal is looking at Walter Matthau to be this flawed father figure for her, and he has no interest in the position,
Right. Well, at the beginning, it was supposed to be that when we started the filming, they cast all of us, and then they brought Walter and Tatum in about a week into everything. So when we all landed in L.A. and showed up at Paramount Studios that first Monday, there was no Buttermaker or
they had no
Amanda
Buttermaker
cast.
Wow! So the top two leads. No, you knew in the last 5 years of his life, you knew Vic Morrow. How was he?
Oh, Vic was a really neat guy. Yeah, I'm a military history buff. My uncle, my Uncle Richard out in New York, was on the carrier Hornet during Doolittle's raid in World War II.
Wow!
When he came back, he came back to the U.S. after the war. He started what they called the Navy Club in his little city of Lockport, New York. And so I remember as a kid going out to visit, and he'd take me there, and I'd listen to him and all his friends tell stories of the war. So it really enthralled me, and it sparked a lifelong interest in military history. And so, Vic Morrow was like my idol because I grew up watching combat.
Which is hilarious, because Combat was shot about
right up the street from the radio station.
It was shot about half a mile from the radio station we're talking to you from.
Oh, okay.
It's now a shopping center, but
it's a shopping center now. But it was a winery in the '60s when they shot Combat here.
Yeah, it was like an abandoned. It was a perfect place to film because it was nothing but sand. We had the real sandy dirt from the grape vineyards here.
Right, right. Well, it was just like France. Back
right,
in
exactly.
The day, so. And
now, as a kid, Tatum O'Neal was a big star at the time. Were you amazed when you found out you were doing a movie with her? When they eventually cast Amanda and Buttermaker, were you just amazed? Because Matthau was huge. Tatum O'Neal was a child star. She was the first 10-year-old to win the Oscar.
Well, not really. I mean, hell, excuse me, sorry.
No, but
heck, I didn't. I was a kid. I didn't know any. Paper Moon was not a kid's movie, so I'd never seen it, and never heard of her. I knew who her father was. But because I'd grown up.
Did her dad?
Yeah, he came to set.
Did he behave or misbehave?
No comment.
Okay, because I read her book. She wrote a book called Paper Hearts. And one of the horrible stories in the book is she and her dad are in England. He's making The Shootist. And they fall in love with Stanley Kubrick. And Kubrick has a daughter, Tatum O'Neal's age. Tatum O'Neal said something precocious at the table, and the Kubricks laughed. And she, in her book, this is a terrible story in her book, he says to her, Tatum, we got to get the tape. We got to get that thing out of the car. So she goes out the front door, and he rabbit punches her in the stomach because he felt she made him look bad in front of Kubrick because he knew something she didn't. And in her book, she says after he hits her in the stomach, they look up and see Stanley Kubrick and his daughter staring at them through the window in horror. And, that was kind of a horrible story.
Yeah, I mean, I would not immediately say that that's false. Let's put it that way.
Wow.
Yeah, I think there was an unhealthy competition is the best way I would put it. And understand. At the time, I was a 12-year-old kid. So what I'm speaking of to now is, 40 years later, looking back at what I recall, and it seemed to me, in retrospect, that there was an unhealthy competition between the two of them.
Wow.
Probably more on his side than hers.
Wow.
Because and in fairness to him, it must be very difficult. While I'm sure he was very proud to have your daughter surpass your accomplishments, your lifetime accomplishments in her first try.
Yeah, she has an Oscar and he doesn't, and I guess that was really
right.
Yeah,
it's
wow.
like, oh, how dare you win an Oscar?
Yeah, boy, oh boy.
Right.
Okay, producer Dan here. I think I addressed this last time when I interviewed you. Walter Matthau, is he a drinker? Was he actually drinking beer
great question,
on the
actually.
set?
No. I think, remember Walter, Jack Lemmon, Burt Lancaster, that whole generation came from vaudeville. That's where they started.
Wow.
And as a matter of fact, Jack Lemmon and Walter used to do vaudeville routines to keep the mothers entertained.
Really?
During lulls in the
Wow.
in the shooting. Not full fledged routines, but they'd stand there and tell their vaudeville jokes to the mothers.
Oh, so
So,
Jack Lemmon came to the set.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
That is
several
really
times.
cool. I mean, these are
So-
the old,
Oh, let me
the old
finish.
school guys, man.
Go on,
Right,
sir.
right. Well, and obviously Burt Lancaster came to the set a couple times. It was his son's movie.
Yeah, Bill Lancaster wrote.
Wow.
He wrote the thing,
Right.
and he passed away very, very young.
Right. And he was a really nice guy, by the way. Bill was a very nice man.
Wow.
But so with that in mind, you can see how they probably having grown up performing in bars and places, they were all a hard drinking group at one point. But by the time we did Bad News Bears, Walter had a heart attack during the filming of, what was it, The Candidate.
Wow.
And so he had dried out. Jack had dried out. Burt had long since dried out because Burt was a huge man. I mean, he was like 6'5" and probably
Wow.
52-inch shoulders, and I mean, he was just a huge guy and very athletic, and so he took care of himself.
Yeah, he played Jim Thorpe. Remember that movie?
Right.
I went to Jim Thorpe Elementary.
He was every bit as big as John Wayne.
Really?
I mean,
Burt Lancaster was? I never knew that.
Oh yeah. He was very slim waisted, but he was an upside down Christmas tree.
Wow.
So
Yeah, I didn't know that seeing that small weight. I thought he might have been smaller like these other guys, like Charlton Heston. or
no,
something.
he was a big man.
All
Wow.
right, a question coming in.
From where?
This is coming from San Diego. Ask Gary about Brandon Cruz.
Brandon Cruz from Courtship of Eddie's
Who
father.
asked that question? Did Brandon Cruz call in and ask that question?
Did Brandon Cruz ask that question?
No, it was not Brandon
Did you
Cruz.
hang out with him?
Oh, okay.
That was
I'm sorry. No, Brandon and Jackie were older than the rest of us. Brandon, Jackie, and David Pollock they were probably 2 years older than me, and anywhere from 4 to 5 years older than most of the other kids.
Was Pollock the son of the producer of the same name?
No.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
now. I remember
Um,
Jack
Hold
Earl
on,
Haley.
Go ahead and finish.
I'm sorry.
You were telling us about Brandon
Cruz.
and
Yeah. So we all in group functions. Obviously, we were all together, but during off hours, they did their own thing, more or less on their own. Again, we were kids. They were older kids.
wow.
Now, Jackie Earl Haley, I remember the cool thing I noticed back then, because I was a dirt bike rider, is that little dirt bike he had was a Harley Davidson, and that was a rare motorcycle to be seen, or even the kids. We all had little Honda XR75s back then, or Yamaha
The mini
Enduros.
trails.
Mini trails.
mini
wow.
trails. Jackie was
Yeah.
had that was bike was even kind of big on him, and that thing was a Harley, and I'm all, this kid's a badass, man.
Well, they actually had two bikes there, and the stunt rider, oddly enough, that crashed into the fence during the show
Yeah.
is the kid who played Brandon's little brother on Sigmund and the Sea Monsters.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh wow, that's a treat.
So
Because Brandon,
yeah,
I talked to Brandon. In my second book, I did a book on the Hulk and Bill Bixby. And Brandon, he's now an avid surfer, and his arms are covered in tats.
and he's got a punk rock band.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Dr. No, I believe, right? Dr. Who? Dr. No? Dr. No.
I think it's Dr. No.
Yeah.
Oh, good. That's my doctor's name.
Yeah, so
It is.
that's every girl I ever dated.
Oh.
So,
No, where did you
no,
shoot?
but
Oh, go ahead.
no, but to answer your question, Brandon was, he was a big star too. Maybe not as big as Tatum, but everybody knew Brandon from the Courtship of A's father.
Wow.
We had all grown up watching him grow up. And he had come, I think either he's written or he is in the process of writing a book about his life. And, he had the typical Hollywood kid's life, Hollywood young actor's life, which was not easy. So he was a little bit different than the rest of us who mostly come from normal families.
Wow.
So I want to ask you this. I had a friend that passed just recently. He was only 50 years old. His name was Johnny. And we sat there, and, I grew up in the rock and roll, the punk rock crowd. And I was sitting with my friend, Keisha, and I said, look, we're still standing because I lost 3 friends this past year. And I'm like, look at us. Are we like the last remaining few? I mean, do you feel that way at any time?
I've been very fortunate. I graduated from a high school with a graduating class of about 350, and I think there's probably 325 of us still around. So I've, knock on wood, been very fortunate not to lose anybody real close to me, other than my father. So not so much. Now, certain times things happen that bring that point home to me. Honestly, last night we were sitting there. My daughter and her husband and baby are living with us while their house is being built. 12 more days, and he came home upset, and come to find out one of his groomsmen, who he'd grown up with, they walked in to wake him up in the morning and was dead. No apparent drug issues or anything like that. He just died in his sleep. So that's a 26-year-old kid. So, nothing's guaranteed in this life.
Yeah. Most of my losses were due to drugs and alcohol and smoking. So,
Right.
And that's a part of the whole rock and roll scene.
Well, then we're out here in L.A. too, which was a whole different thing.
And there's AIDS, and there's all sorts of crap.
Now, Gary, when did you move back to Texas after was it after you gave up of acting?
Oh no! I never lived. I've always lived in Texas. I was in California to do Bad News Bears.
Oh, so you flew
for
out.
4 months? Right. I mean, if you look at the cast, Scott Firestone was from New York. Alfred Lutter, Scott Firestone, who played Reggie, was New York. Alfred was New York, who played Ogilvy. Chris Barnes, who played Tanner, was New Jersey. Then I was Texas, and I'm trying to think if there was anybody else. I think everybody else was California, but there were 4 of us from out of state. Oh no, David Stanbaugh was from New Jersey as well, who played Tubby Whitewood.
Wow!
So there were 5 of us from out of state, and they actually did what they called cattle calls, and they went to the 50 different major metropolitan areas and interviewed kids. And by the time they cast Bad News Bears, they had interviewed anywhere from 12 to 15,000 kids nationwide.
Wow!
For the parts.
And you made the team out of all these kids. I mean, how did you find out? When did it come to your town for the audition? How many kids were there when you were there?
Oh gosh, probably 800-900.
Oh my God!
Not just, but they weren't auditioning just for my part. Obviously, they were auditioning for all the parts.
Wow.
And it was the summer of '75, and it was in Dallas.
Summer.
They were filming a movie. Yeah, no. Actually, Jaws released in '76 with Bad News Bears.
No. Bad News Bears came out in '76 with The Omen. Jaws came out the summer of '75, June 20th.
Oh, you're right. It was the year before because I saw it in California. You're right.
Because your movie Drive-In was a parody of Jaws in '76. Remember?
Right.
Wow.
So
Bad News Bears came out '76. Drive-In came out late '76, early '77.
Wow.
So Bad News we filmed Drive-In literally 4 weeks after Bad News Bears stopped filming.
What did you shoot Drive-In?
Tyler, Texas.
Wow.
Not Tyler, Texas.
So
I take that back.
Did you have to,
No, let me finish
it was not Tyler. It was, gosh, forgotten the name of the town. It's where the state mental hospital is. Which I always thought was kind
That's
of funny.
the part you want to
But
forget.
it was, yeah, it was, but it was only like 80 miles from my house.
Wow.
So we go out on the week. We come home for the weekend with my family, and go out on Friday or Sunday night and stay at the hotel for the week.
Now, in Drive-In, they hadn't finished the fake movie, had they?
No, the fake movie was Disaster '76, and one of the very uncomfortable things about that is the poster for the movie. And one of the, basically, Disaster '76 was earthquake,
Jaws.
and Jaws, and basically every bad movie, earthquake, Jaws. There was a tidal wave that was caused by the earthquake that wiped out the city. Every disaster you could think of was happening at one time.
Yeah.
And one of the disasters was an airplane crashing into the Empire State Building.
Oh, that's right. In the movie itself.
And the movie poster for Disaster '76 shows a jetliner hanging out of the side of a parody of it, hanging out of the side of the Empire State Building.
Wow.
So that was a little bit uncomfortable a few years later.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Wow.
So back to that audition. Okay, you're there with hundreds of kids, right? And now,
Right.
So were you where were you in line? Did you wait in line and get called in? And what did they have you do?
Yeah, basically what happened was, it was, like I said, it was the summer of '75. Back then, movies were typically filmed on set at a studio, or in a location in the Los Angeles, Hollywood area. Few things had gone to San Francisco, like Streets of San Francisco, or New York, like Kojak and Streets and some of those TV series had moved out of L.A. and Hollywood. But really, that was still the center of the movie and TV universe, was Hollywood, right?
Right.
So that summer they were filming a movie called Logan's Run.
Oh, they're in Dallas.
Michael York, and I can't remember
Jenny
the female lead in
Agutter,
it.
the most beautiful woman in the world, Jenny Agutter.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
So anyway, they came to Dallas to film certain parts of that movie. We had the apparel mart in Dallas, where they do the clothing market every year. Was a very 21st century type design building.
Yeah, like like a futuristic mall.
Right. And so, if you remember that movie at all, where they're flying around with jetpacks zapping each other.
Yes.
That was one of that was in the grand hall of the apparel mart that they were doing all that.
Cool.
Did you watch them shooting that?
That was, well, yeah, that was big news in Dallas, that they were filming this movie in several locations in Dallas. So my mother actually worked at the apparel mart for the director of food and beverages. And so one morning we're listening to the local radio station, and the local DJ, Ron Chapman, comes on and says, "Hey, all you kids, you want to be in a movie, come out to the Kim Dawson agency at the apparel mart for auditions." Well, everybody went out there thinking it was for Logan's Run, to be an extra on Logan's Run.
Wow.
So summer had started, and my mother didn't have anybody watch me that day, so she said, "Hey, come on, go with me, and we'll let you try an audition for a part in a movie." Which, one in a million chance, right?
You got it, though.
So I go with her, and I go to the Kim Dawson agency, and there's kids lined up out in the hallway, just lines all over the place. And I waited, and finally they called me in and had me read through some lines, and they said, "Okay, well, come back after lunch. We'd like to do a second reading." So I came back after lunch and said, "Okay, well," but nowadays they'll have a videographer there, and he'll tape you reading the lines. They'll just shoot it overnight to the producer and director, and they'll see how you look on screen and how you act, and they'll make a decision. But back then we didn't have any of that. So they said, "Well, we want you to come back next week because the producer and the director, Michael Ritchie and Stanley Jaffe, are going to be in town, and we want them to see you." So I came back next week thinking, okay, this is kind of neat. It was an adventure. And they had me there all morning. One morning, they had me running in place, eating candy bars with paper on it. Just constantly eating and moving and talking and saying lines. And they said, "Okay, let's take a break for lunch." So I went over to my mom's office, and we went to the cafeteria at the Pearl Mart that had this ham sandwich that was probably 3 inches thick. And it was my favorite thing in the world to ever eat. And so I said, I want a ham sandwich. So we went down there. I ate, came back, and they had buckets of chicken. And I'm like,
Oh,
uh-oh.
yeah.
So they had me for another 2-3 hours eating and everything. I probably gained 4 pounds during the interview. And I was sick as a dog. I went home, was throwing up that night because I'd eaten so much. And but at the end of it, they said, "Don't call us, we'll call you."
Yeah.
So we left, and that was on a Wednesday, if I remember right. And the following Friday, my parents, we had family in Austin, which was about 3.5 hours south of Dallas, and we were going down to see them for a long weekend. And so we packed up, we went down, and my dad at the time was a VP of Hilton, and so we were staying at the Hilton in Austin. And we went over to my aunt and uncle's house, spent the whole day with them, and came back and that Saturday night, and there was message light lit. My dad said for my dad to call his secretary immediately at her home phone number, and so he did. And she said, Paramount Studios has been calling all day Friday afternoon, and today they want Gary and Miss Cavanero to be out there at Paramount Studios Monday morning.
Wow.
And so, we packed everything up and went home and packed up, thinking we were going out there for a couple of weeks. And they said that the gist of the conversation is, we're going to give Gary a try and see how he works out.
Wow.
So we thought, okay, I'll be out there for a week or two. So my dad arranged for us to stay at the Beverly Hilton. And we went out there, and before we knew it, they said, "Oh, no, you're going to be out here for at least 10 or 12 weeks."
Wow.
So we moved into an apartment in San Fernando Valley and filmed. So that was kind of the genesis of it. Each step along the way, we were led to believe that it was a trial basis, and it wasn't until we were probably 6-7 weeks into filming that we decided, okay, we're past the point of no return. They're going to keep me here. And that's when we kind of relaxed a little bit. But, every week we were like, okay, are they going to send us home?
Well, hey, but let me ask, Gary, were any kids replaced?
No. Michael and Stanley were really nice men. And probably anybody else would have had a much more difficult time dealing with, hundreds of kids, because at times we had over 100 kids on set at any given time, probably, with all the other teams and everything that were involved. Certainly over 70 or 80.
Well,
and they managed it very well, and it was a carrot and a stick type of thing, and they say, okay, if you get this scene done in two sets, we'll take everybody down to Dairy Queen.
Wow.
Or something,
that's cool.
something like that, and they were willing to do it that way. And Walter was just the nicest man in the world, and he bought into it. Vic bought into it. Joyce Van Patten was really good with all the adults on that film. Even Vic, who was very solemn and a little bit morose at the time, they were all great around the kids. They were all great around us kids.
Wow.
Every one of them was wonderful.
So nobody misbehaved in front of the kids.
No, they really didn't. They were very very good role models. All the people that were involved in the movie. Now, some of the female actresses' parents.
Oh no!
Who got to the set weren't the best people in the world, but you know.
I'm guessing the person you're referring to might rhyme with Schmeiman O'Meal.
Yeah, he was kind of a unique person. Let's put it that way.
Wow!
Just like in real Little League, you know, you got some of those parents. You know,
the kids are usually good, and the parents.
The parents are so hard on the kids. You know, wanting them to win and make sure they do what they want them to do.
Well, I use the example that Tatum couldn't throw the ball straight. Okay, I mean she could not throw a baseball at all. She was a girl. She threw like a girl.
Yeah. Threw like a girl.
Yeah, and I thought she was the greatest pitcher when I was a kid.
Well, and you notice whenever you see the real pitching being done, it's always a back view, and it was a little league. A kid from the local Little League that they put a wig on and a uniform on and shot from behind.
Wow!
And you know, so all you ever saw from her was the windup. But she fancied herself as being a pitcher, and so I'd go out there and try and catch for her. And she'd throw the ball, and it would be 10 feet over my head. And Ryan's in the stand saying, "That's good, Tatum. He should have had that one." I'm looking over like, okay. If I were 12 feet tall, I might have had a shot at it, but other than that, no. But we had one of the character actors on the movie. I can't remember his last name. His first name was Joe, but he was the umpire in the movie, and he played the nearsighted lookout in F Troop. He kept falling out of the watchtower.
Joe Brooks.
Joe Brooks.
Joe Brooks. He went on to appear in the Teen Wolf movies.
Yeah, so he was the catcher or the umpire, and he's the only one that ever stood up to Ryan, told him to back off and leave the kids alone.
Wow, what a great guy!
Yeah, he was a very nice man, very very nice man.
Still is. I ran into him a year ago. He's a very sweet guy.
Is he still alive? I didn't even know that.
No, he is alive. At least he was as of 2 years ago when I ran into him. Wow,
But, yeah, I mean. Again, every adult involved in that movie was exemplary.
Wow.
They really were.
That's good to know. Because you hear such bad stories about actors sometimes. And Walter Matthau, I always knew he was a great guy just from watching
that whole
The Odd
generation
Couple.
was nice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I got a story.
That whole generation, Walter, Burt Lancaster, Jack Lemmon, John Wayne, who was out on the set once, they were all just what they appeared to be. They were good role models, and that was at a time when people cared about being role models. Now it's more the cop out. Well, I didn't ask anybody to look at me as a role model type of thing, and people do what they want to do, but that was a different time, and that whole generation was just as it appeared to be in my experience. They were just as they appeared to be, and that is very, very good role models. When you get down to Ryan O'Neal and Barbara Streisand and that group, that's when they began, believing their own press, becoming politically active, and it's morphed into what we have today, where you have high school dropouts who think that they know more about what's good for the country than
right.
And are given more credit for knowing what's good for the country than they should be.
Gary, I had an experience with Walter Matthau. My parents were in horse racing. That's how we made our living. And my dad was a horse trainer, and my mom was an artist, and she painted a lot of paintings for a lot of these famous people. But we were at Hollywood Park in the grandstand one day, and there's this guy over there with holes in his jeans and a ball cap, just looked like a regular, horse player, a guy that spends all his money, just kind of looking like a bum, kind of. And my mom
like
goes,
the Lemon Drop Kid.
yeah. My mom goes, see that guy over there? Go ask for his autograph. That's Walter Matthau. Tell him you like that movie Cactus Flower. And that movie, this was like not with less than a year of that movie came out, and I was like, I don't know, I was like 8 or 9, and I walked up to him and I said, hey, can I have your autograph? He's all, you don't even know who I am. He's all, I go, you were pretty good in Cactus Flowers. And he's going, who's telling you to say this? Because you're not old enough to watch that movie. And he's all, well, I usually charge about $15. I go, I ain't got no money. He's all, okay, kid, I'll let you have it for free this time.
Wow, that's really
and he gets his pen out and he writes it. I wish I still had that autograph, man, but I was so excited about that because I really didn't know who he was. And then, as I got older, I saw the movie Cactus Flower, and a few years when I learned out who he was, that he was this big actor. And but at the time, I really didn't know. But I remember those exact words, everything. It was great, man. Really cool guy, he's just so laid back.
Well, the thing is, what people didn't realize about Walter and why he was so successful with us is his son Charlie's the same age I am.
Yeah, Charlie's a director now and a voiceover artist.
Right. And he actually has a part, a bit part in Bad News Bears where he played for the Athletics, and he's the one that said, "Hey Tanner, does he go to the bathroom for you too?" When that was Charlie.
Wow.
And so it was very second nature to Walter, who was a wonderful father, according to Charlie. It was very second nature to him to act paternally around all of us because we were all the same age as his kid.
Wow.
And so he was just I can't say enough good things about Walter. He was just a very, very, very nice man. Was very concerned, always concerned about the kids. Were they working us too hard? Were they keeping us out in the sun too long? It was just, and even that concern even stretched to the mothers who you can't really see it from in the movie, but there was between the baseball diamond and the concession stand, there was like a little gully that had trees in it, and all the mothers would be on lounges, just yard lounges out under those trees, and it got to be 110 degrees out there, and it was not a comfortable day.
So was this in the middle of the summer?
It was in the middle of the summer. Yeah, we started filming in early June.
Oh wow!
Yeah. Late May, early June. So I mean, it was like 2 weeks into the summer, and it was, and he would go out of his way to be down there talking to them, saying,
wow.
Complimenting the this one's son or that one's son, or and he's just very, very, very self-deprecating. He didn't have this huge image of him. Your story is very, very true. I mean, he almost laughing that anybody would want his autograph, right? He was just a down to earth guy, and Jack Lemmon I found to be very similar to that, which is probably why they were such good friends for lifelong friends.
Wow.
So they were just good people. They were like you and me.
No, that's amazing. In fact, I was going to tell you, by the way, that was Joe Brooks from F Troop. He went on to write "You Light Up My Life" and a bunch of commercial jingles. Committed suicide in 2007 when some charges against him came up. The guy you mentioned earlier, the umpire, Joe Brooks.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So kind of a dark end to a nice guy,
That's too bad.
No, let me
I hate
ask.
to hear that.
I'm sorry about that, but let me ask you: are you still in touch with the kids? With your
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Actually, was with Chris Barnes about a month ago. Here in Dallas, he was doing a TV show for, I think it was NBC. That he and I hooked up and had he and I and my wife had lunch, and my mother, who he knew from the set, we all had lunch together. And then later on, he it was a reality show. He needed some people, and so he ended up doing something with my mother-in-law and her boyfriend.
Okay, Gary,
so-
let me ask you a question. So, I got a question here on my screen. What is this about $100,000 camera?
Oh, Gary, they're the man.
those those Panavisions
Right.
cameras that they used back then. They were huge cameras, or at least they appeared that way to little boys. And John Alonzo was our cinematographer, and he was constantly walking around. He had a shoulder harness that he was walking around with one of those things on his shoulder constantly.
Those things were
And,
heavy
yeah,
back
just-
then.
ju- Yeah, they weren't the mini cams you see today. And just the film case, and it was this huge oval case that stuck on top of those cameras. That thing weighed probably 30 pounds
Right.
with the reels of film in it. And so I remember one day, I don't remember how it happened. I do know that I was always fascinated with it, and I talked to him. And again, he was like most of the other adults on the set, was very fatherly and patron to all the kids. He had children of his own. So one day I convinced him to let me put that thing on my shoulder.
Oh no!
Oh, no.
And so he puts it on. So I'm sitting there, and I got that thing on my shoulder, and I'm looking through the eyepiece, and I'm pretending to be a cameraman. He goes, "Just remember, that's $100,000 camera if you drop it."
Wow!
And it was one of those, like a electrical shock went through me. I'm like, take it up, take it off, take it. So I could just see me dropping that, and $100,000 is a lot of money now. It was a whole lot of money back then.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Wow,
And
wow.
I could see my dad having to sell our house to pay for a camera I dropped.
Yeah,
I'm like,
that's-
take it off my shoulder, quick, take it.
Back then, we had a 3-bedroom house and half an acre, and we sold it in Arcadia, and we sold it for $70,000. So
Wow.
that was at that time, same time.
And that was less than the
That
camera.
was California, man.
No, but what's interesting out here, Gary, is after Bill Lancaster died, they opened up a place off of the 405 freeway. They by UCLA called Bad News Bears Park, and there was a controversy out here after they did that because it's not where they shot the movie. And people said, "How could you do that? They didn't shoot the movie there." It's because that was the park where Bill Lancaster grew up, and he thought of the Bad
Right.
News Bears based on his Little League. Where were the parks from Bad News Bears for those coming to California who want to see it?
Well, I mean, you're asking a Texan to give you directions for the San Fernando Valley. I can't do that.
This is true. but
I did. Yeah, I mean, it was in the San Fernando Valley, and at the time, I could have said, "Hey, it's down the street from the Loves and the Baskin Robbins," and that was about the only thing in the San Fernando Valley. People would know exactly where it was. But now, I all I know is I went to it back in probably 97, 98. I was in LA for business, and one of my reps mentioned that this account is over by the park where you film Bad News Bears. And I'm like, "Oh, really?" He goes, "Yeah, you want to go see it?" I said, "Yeah, I'd love to drive by and see it." Well, if you look at the movie, there's nothing anywhere around that park. There were 3 or 4 farms on the first base side, and they were full-fledged farms, and that's where we parked our trailers across that 2-lane road that you see us parking and walking across the street in one of the early scenes. And there was nothing. So there were 3 houses there and nothing for as far as the eye could see.
wow.
Except for, I shouldn't say that. And then about half a mile down that road, there was a strip center that had Baskin Robbins and a Love's Barbecue and a couple other little shops in it.
Jeez,
that was it. Now you go
amazing.
there, and they've taken down the outfield fence. There's still the diamond there because Paramount bought it, built the park, and at the end of the shooting, they donated the park to the city.
That's amazing.
And,
so did they build the park?
But now, I'm sorry.
Did they build the park for the movie?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, they just bought the land. They bought some farmland and built this park on it. And like I said, at the end of the shooting, they donated it to the local municipality, and it became their little league field from that point forward. But if you go there now, the outfield fence is gone, and there's basically, it's on a little island, and it's surrounded by duplexes and condos. I mean,
Wow.
they're right up to the edge of the fields.
So you could never film it there today because all the complaints from noise and everything else.
Oh yeah, right.
Wow, that's amazing.
How is craft services on the set?
Who?
Craft services. Food. When you're on your set.
Oh, I mean, it was. Shoot, that was 40 years ago. I don't remember what I ate yesterday, guys. I do remember that was my first experience with a food wagon.
Yep.
And they had a little wagon there that was not part of anything else. They just pull up and park there, and they would make breakfast sandwiches on the griddle. They'd make egg and bacon and cheese and egg and sausage and cheese sandwiches on the griddle there for breakfast, and that was heaven. That's about the only thing I remember as far as the food.
Okay. Because Pat and I are actors too, and that's why I had to say the craft service. That's what we call it now, craft services. And yeah, a lot of times we get the hot food trucks coming in, making you whatever you want. It's really great.
But I mean,
it was just a buffet. They'd set it up as a buffet, and we'd go down the line, pick out what we want, and just sit down at a picnic table.
Have your kids seen?
And being a real gentleman, Steve Joyner did not want to interrupt our show, but he says hello to you.
Oh, Steve Joyner says hello.
Oh, okay. Well, he had just called me saying, "Hey, are you going to be on with them this morning or not?" Oh, crap, I forgot.
Steve's amazing. Thank you, Steve. But let me ask you, what did your kids think of the Bad News Bears when you eventually showed it to them?
Oh gosh! At first they didn't. I have 3 boys and a daughter, and when I first showed it to them, they refused to believe that was me because, quite honestly, the reason I didn't do the second movie is because I lost a lot of weight.
Wow.
And while at 54 I gained a lot of that back when my kids were young, I was still relatively svelte. And they're like, "No, that's not you. That's not you." And then they'd see the credits at the end of it. And say, "Oh my gosh!" So being normal kids, they go brag to their friends, and their friends would say, "No, that's not true." They bring them over to show them the movie and said, "Look, watch, there it is." And so over time, it got to be fairly well known that I had been in the movie, and I'm sure being the kids, the way kids are, I'm sure they used that for every advantage that they could get.
Wow! But so they came to you for Goes to Japan and Breaking Training, and were they disappointed you'd lost the weight, or were they happy for you?
Well, they came. They did not come to me for Japan because that, they after Bad News Bears had come out and was a success, they decided to do a sequel. When they originally started talking to us, they were just going to do Breaking Training. What they ended up doing is signing a 3-year deal with all the other kids to do 3 movies, three additional movies. But by the time that happened, I was already out of the picture. So they came to me initially and they said they wanted me to do the movie. I said, "That's great." Or my parents said, "That's great." He's more than happy to do that. But you need to understand when I did the Bad News Bears, I was 5 foot, 210 pounds. When they came to me, I was about 5'7", 165 pounds. So they said his shape has changed a little bit. Mm-hmm. And so they said, "Well, that's not a problem. That's not a problem. We just need him to gain 50 pounds back."
What?
Oh
And
no!
Oh no!
and you know, and the reason I had lost the weight, and I actually started losing the weight when I was in Bad News Bears. I had, you know, obviously been a very overweight young boy.
Right.
Had gotten bronchitis while I was out there, and went to the doctor out in California. And unlike my pediatrician, who had always told my mom I'd eventually grow out of it, this doctor looked at me and said, "Hey, what are you doing?" He said, "You know, you're morbidly obese. You're going to be in a wheelchair by the time you're 15. You're going to be dead before you're 20."
Wow.
And he just literally scared the bejeebers out of me, and I started losing weight that day.
Wow.
Mainly because he scared the what out of me, and I had to go to the bathroom 4 or 5 times. But you know, it literally started from that day forward, and I lost about 45 pounds, and was fortunate enough to get my first growth spurt. And so you know, I did not want to have that conversation again. I just told my parents flat out, no, I don't want to do that. And they said, well, we're not going to let you do that.
Wow.
You know, your health is a lot more valuable than being in a movie.
Yeah.
So, you know, I turned, you know, I say in effect, my parents said, no, he's not going to do it. So,
way,
you know, and that was much the same.
You got to commend your parents, because they could have, a lot of parents out here, a lot of stage parents out here would have gone for the money and dragged you to a buffet. They turned down the money. No, they took you over the, you know what I mean? You got to give them full credit for that, you know?
Well, you know, absolutely. I mean, this was always about me. It was never for, you know, my parents weren't the type. They didn't want my money. They didn't want anything. They just wanted me to be happy.
Wow.
And I will say this: my co-actors in Bad News Bears came from very similar families. I mean, one of the reasons Chris Barnes was not in the sequel in Goes to Japan was his parents, who were very religious, had finally had enough of the language and the racist statements and so forth that his character had to say, and said no. You know, they wanted script approval.
Wow.
Because they said, you know, this is affecting not only Chris but his brothers and sisters in the way they think, and we're not going to have that. So that's why he wasn't in Bad News Bears Go to Japan.
Amazing.
So yeah, you know, I mean, there are more important things than money out there, which I think sometimes people in our society forget, but it is true.
You know, interesting. What did you think of the sequel or the remake? What did you think of the sequels and the remake with Billy Bob Thornton?
I thought the sequel, the Breaking Train, was okay. I've actually never seen Bad News Bears Go to Japan. I talked to the guys and heard some of the things that were happening on the set there, and it just never was something I was interested in even watching.
What could you tell us obliquely what was happening on the set?
Oh, you know, they'd all grown into teenagers, and basically, Tony Curtis was not the role model that Walter had been.
Wow.
And it was not the pleasant experience that Bad News Bears was.
Wow.
You know, anything more than that is hearsay, and
understood.
You have to talk to them on.
Wow, no, but Tony Curtis's misbehavior is famous. So imagining he didn't have the same moral obligations that Walter Matthau felt towards you and your friends. You know, because I see Lupus every now and then. I see Quinn every now and then around L.A. He represents actors and stuff, and it's interesting that the kids.
That's an interesting statement that we need to come back to.
Oh yeah. Good point.
That's a whole different story.
Wow. Yeah. Because I know a few former child actors, and some of them have the worst stories. I mean, the parents found a way around the Coogan law into the money. You know, I mean, Gary Coleman was a contemporary of yours, and look what happened to him. You know.
Well, and that's a fairly loosely written law, and especially if you live outside the state of California. I mean, my parents could have broken into that fund anytime they wanted to, you know, and I think most parents could. It's it's one of those laws that's meant to make you stop and think, not necessarily meant to keep you from doing something.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's not an ironclad thing. But yeah, it just it was a different time.
Well, I
know?
mean, I know a kid who did several big movies in the 80s and 90s as a child actor, and he was telling me horrible stories. His dad wanted a private plane and broke into the fund to buy himself a private plane, and and he goes, the guy's an adult now, and he goes, my father basically partied down on all the money he made me earn as a child, and he's kind of bitter, and I don't really blame him when he talks about it, you know?
Right. I mean, again, I've been very fortunate. All the people I've come in contact with who were adults were very well behaved. All the kids came from good families whose parents placed their welfare above their children's welfare above their own.
Wow.
Just as most good parents do.
Like your parents did. I mean, the studio was going to waive money to fatten you up, and they didn't want it. They would rather have a healthy kid.
Right.
That's just amazing to me. I mean, no, when you look at that, Gary. Now, what are you doing now? What do you do in Texas now?
I work for an Japanese electronics company. I'm the regional sales manager. I cover the southern U.S., Mexico, and South America.
Wow.
And so I do a lot of traveling internationally. And in my free time, I get to go do, in recent years, card shows and things like that.
Is that weird? Is that weird to step out of your normal? By the way, with your job, I just want to say that Bad News Bear eventually made it to Japan anyway.
That is true. That is true.
Now, I know there's a collectible baseball card set that it came in a box, right? It came with all the players.
I'm not sure how they package it. I know they had. There's only. I'm trying to think. My understanding was when they did it, they did 7 or 8 of us. But I've seen something recently that makes me think that they may have done everybody, but I was not aware of it.
Did you ever
being
get
in Texas? I did my own signing.
Did you get your own card? I mean, do you have a set? You never got you got your own card of you, right?
I have a full set of cards.
Oh, you got the full set. Okay.
Well, that's what I said. I thought I did. I mean, it's everything they made. I don't know if they did a supplemental later on or not.
So, do you go to any of these autograph shows or any of these conventions and set up a table and do signings?
Just started. 40 years later. Somebody we got together, myself and David Pollock and Aaron Blunt, who played Ahmad. Mm-hmm. David, who was Rudy Stein. Brett Firestone. I'm trying to remember Brett's name in the movie. Can't even remember his name anymore. But he was a curly-headed kid, right. Second baseman. And Scott Firestone, who was Reggie, the third baseman. 5 of us got together last year at the 40th anniversary.
Oh, wow. And I saw that video. I watched that video of you guys. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was in Moore Park, where David Pollock's the city councilman.
Wow. Moore Park, California?
This was So this was like a 1950s Paramount movie theater. And it does plays and things of that sort now in their downtown area, but they set aside one night and they did a screening of the movie for charity, and the 5 of us got up there and answered questions, and really it was the first time all 5 of us had been together in 40 years.
Wow.
So one of the people there arranges, or I say talent. I mean that in the very loosest sense of the word. For these card shows, And he asked us if we wanted to do one in New Jersey last year in October. It was I've forgotten the name of the show, but anyway, myself and David
Chiller?
Pollack
Was
and
it
Aaron
Chiller?
Blunt did it. It was Chiller, yeah, Chiller.
Yeah, all right. Biggest thing in Jersey, yeah.
Oh yeah, that's a
Yeah,
big
so
old show.
we did that last year. And it was myself, David, and Aaron. And now he has put together another one that's going to be in Virginia in April.
Wow.
He's asking, and we're trying to get a bigger group together for that. And it's actually a sports memorabilia show as opposed to a television and movie memorabilia, which the Chiller was. But so we're starting to get into it. And while we were there, we talked to a guy who wanted to put together 3 or 4 shows that we do as a group. It's amazing to me that anybody wants the autograph of somebody who was in a movie 40 years ago, but surprisingly
that's
enough,
iconic. It's a piece of history. I mean, that movie was
right.
groundbreaking. I mean,
you were one of the last real movies before Star Wars and variations thereof took over. You know.
So they say. I mean,
you guys were the kids that all us other kids could relate to. You know, it's like, hey, that's us out there. You know.
Well, I think the thing that made the movie so again, I don't want to sound this to come out wrong, but it's so important. And I'm not saying it just because I was in it, but I think what made it so important and so lasting and almost become iconic, as you said, is the fact that we lost.
Oh yeah.
You know, and if you think about it, up until then, movies were feel good. You know, and not the Bad News Bears was a downer, but had it followed the script the way it should have, we would have won. We would have been heroes. You know, in International Velvet, she wins.
Yeah.
You know, in Newt Rodney, he wins. You know, in all these movies, they struggle, they win. We struggled, we lost. But we really won something more important than the game, and that was the whole point that Michael was making. Right. We won our own self-respect.
Michael
okay? So we actually filmed 2 endings.
Michael changed the ending. That's amazing. Go on.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we filmed 2 endings. We filmed an ending where we won and an ending where we lost.
Wow.
And none of us knew until it premiered at the SMU Film Festival in 1976. None of us knew whether we won or lost.
Wow. I never knew that. Because there were 2 sports movies in 76 that rocked the world. Both were about athletes who train and try their best and still lose. Bad News Bears and MGM UA's Rocky. And you guys both hit huge box office by not having them win in the ending.
Right.
Wow. That's really amazing. So you had no idea the first time you saw it whether or not it would be winning or the much more satisfying ending where you guys lose and become bad sports and get drunk and start a fight.
So did the cast have a screening for the cast before it hit the theaters?
No.
Wow.
In fact, I was the first one of the kids to see it because it premiered in Dallas at the SMU Film Festival.
Wow.
So how did you feel when you saw the end of the movie? How did you feel
when you saw the ending? Did it bum you out or did it make you happy?
I was a kid. I wanted to win. Oh yeah. I still remember vividly being at the SMU Film Festival, and that's actually where I ended up going to college even. But being there, and that was my hometown, University Park, in the Dallas area, the suburb of Dallas. And I went there with my parents, and there weren't enough seats, so I'm sitting on the steps in the aisle, watching the show, and people are looking over at me and looking at the screen and pointing at me and whispering and everything. And so at the end of the show, I got to go up on stage with Michael, and we did a question and answer session.
Wow!
And
how cool!
You know, that's the first time I found out that my line, my ad lib line of bullshit was so outrageous because I just thought it was. I thought it just came natural, you know.
Yeah.
But when I said it in the movie, all the parents gasped and then cracked up laughing. And So we get up there, and Michael gave me full credit. He said, "Yeah, one of the greatest obscenities in the movie is when Gary says bullshit to Walters, demanding that somebody pay for his windshield." And he said, and that was all him.
Wow.
So.
And did you like Michael Ritchie? Because he was a big fan of movies about competition. Remember, he also directed Smile, with Carrie
And Downhill
Fisher.
Racer. And,
yeah, all competition movies,
Right.
And it's interesting.
Michael was a really nice guy. He was a big kid. I turned 12 on the set.
Wow.
And so they brought me in that day. No, I didn't even know anybody knew my birthday. Any of the big people. Now my mother had a birthday party for me the previous day at Farrell's Ice Cream Parlor.
Wow.
You don't remember those? I don't even know if they're still in existence.
They came back. They're here again.
They did came back, but I remember in the early 80s, they all got torn down. They had one in my neighborhood.
So we had a birthday party with several of with all the kids from the movie and several of the kids from the other teams, and I never even knew that Michael and Stanley knew it was my birthday. So I come in that next Monday, which was my actual birthday, and they said, "Okay, we got to refilm the milk dud scene where I got milk chocolate on the baseball, and
I was just going to ask you about that.
Throw it.
Now, was that in the script or was that an improv thing or added?
No,
later?
it was what, the milk duds and
yeah.
melted chocolate. No, that was a script. But so put me in my I'm available sweatshirt and Bermuda shorts and Coors beer hat that had the top of it cut out, and I go over, I bend over, I pick up the ball, I turn around to sling it, and I get 2 lemon meringue pies in my face from Michael and Stanley. And they're like, "Happy birthday!"
Wow, they pried you.
Got the old soupy sales in the face, man.
Oh yeah, so it was fun, and of course Michael came to the set one day. He was a really nice man, and I was the big kid, and we all got along pretty well. But typically when we didn't, it was somebody teasing me. So he came to the set one day wearing a shirt that was bright yellow with blue letters, Gary Lee Cavanero Fan Club, and he's sitting in his director's chair wearing that shirt, and so he just.
By the way, what a nice thing to do! Because as a kid. You can't differentiate between really being picked on and being picked on, right? I mean, it feels like you're being ribbed. So when he wore that, it was a subtle thing that was said. He liked you and wanted to make sure you didn't think they disliked you, right?
Right.
Wow, that's really touching. I never heard that story, Gary.
Yeah, he was a very nice man.
Tell me,
died way too young.
He really did. Tell me, your mom got a picture of you two with that shirt on him.
Oh, sure, and. The next day, half the crew had it on. So,
awesome.
Yeah.
That's a really great story.
Yeah.
I mean, when you look at, you also did a movie with Paul Newman. You want to talk about that? You were Thug 1.
I'm sorry?
You did the movie with Paul Newman and Joanne Woodward?
Was Paul in that movie? I'm not sure Paul was in the movie.
Oh, but
Joanne was. And
I thought he was listed
Joanne
too.
Woodward, and no, it was called Crisis at Central High, and it was who was, I'm trying to remember who was in it. It's Joanne Woodward and
I can look it up right now.
No, yeah, right now. Hold on.
But it was about the integration of Little Rock Central High School, which was back in the '60s, where they integrated the school, Little Rock Central, and Governor Faubus of Arkansas called out the National Guard to make the black students go home.
Wow!
And the president called out the 101st Airborne to make the National Guard go home.
Wow!
And enforce integration. So it was Charles Durning.
Yes. Yeah, I'm sorry. Not Paul Newman, Charles Durning.
Yeah.
Who just passed away.
And, yes. So, but that was actually the part of that movie I was in was actually filmed in Dallas as well.
Wow.
Woodrow Wilson High School, which was the twin architecturally of Little Rock Central, which is long ago burned down.
Oh, wow.
But that was a again, being a big history buff, that was a really interesting thing for me to be a part of.
Wow, that's true. I mean, it's amazing to me because, like you were mentioning, you having a relative on the Doolittle raid. That blows my mind. So you're recreating history, and you're playing a character on the wrong side of it. Was that weird?
Not really. I mean, it just it was fascinating. It seems when we made that movie, I guess I was a sophomore in high school, which would have been 78, 79. And it seems so odd to have those racial tensions because we didn't have them. Of course, nowadays we have them all over. So
right.
Everybody talks about all the advances we've made and how bad it used to be. To me, it seems like we've gone the other direction. Because I can honestly tell you, growing up, I didn't see color,
Wow.
and nor did anybody I knew. People were people. So it seems that we've taken a big step backwards in recent years.
That's true.
Not real sure why.
Wow. Now, as a Dallas resident, what's your favorite area of history down there?
Down here?
Yeah, the book depository or something else?
We just don't have a lot of history here. It's not that old a city. It's not like the East Coast. But I guess that would probably have to be it, just because that's the biggest thing that's ever happened here.
Wow.
And it's a thing that, I still remember. When I first met Walter, the first thing out of his mouth was, I said, we doing our introduction, telling where we're from. He goes, "Oh, you're from Dallas." Yes, sir. He goes, "You guys killed Kennedy." Well, not me personally, no.
That's
and he said it joking. He was saying it jokingly.
Yeah.
I'm like, not me personally. No, I didn't. But oddly enough, my dad, being with Hilton Hotels, one of his best friends was Jack Ruby.
Wow.
And my father was actually interviewed in several of the books about the fact that he had breakfast with Jack the morning before Jack went over and shot Oswald at the Hilton.
So you are related to that Cavanero.
I'm sorry?
That's your dad. My brother is a huge Kennedy buff, my brother Donald. And your family name shows up in like 4 different books on the Kennedy assassination.
Right, that's my father. Yeah. In fact, Jack kept up a correspondence with my mother and father when he was in prison, and my parents passed those letters on to who did the investigation at the FBI.
Right, Jim. What's his name? Yeah, Jim.
And the SOB never gave him back to him. They gave him to him to try and help Jack because Jack would to see the character of the man, and the guy kept their letters.
He stole their correspondence, which by the way are priceless.
Right. So my dad and Jack were very close. So from that standpoint, I do, because having grown up with the story, my parents were fervent believers that there was no such conspiracy, that certainly nothing that Jack Ruby was involved in. He was, before and after, a diehard Kennedy supporter.
Wow.
A rabid Kennedy, you might even say Kennedy supporter. So, and was very emotionally involved in the fact that Kennedy had been killed, much less in Dallas. So, they fervently believed it was a crime of passion.
Wow.
So,
now, are you a Shiner Bock drinker?
I've been known to tip a bottle of Shiner every once in a while, yes.
Every one of my friends in Texas, man, if you're not drinking Shiner, you're not a Texan.
I prefer Corona, but when Corona's not available, I do Shiner.
Good man.
I do. I like the blondes.
Me too. I like the blonde Modelos. That's what I had one yesterday at Taco Tuesday. Do you do Taco Tuesdays in Texas?
Yes, they do.
Awesome.
We have all the restaurants do that. So all the Mexican restaurants do Taco Tuesday.
I was just there a few weeks ago. I was driving. My friend was moving back, and I drove a U-Haul from Houston, stopped in Austin, and drove all the way back. And it was, of course, it was raining last month. Yeah, and I noticed there's a lot of things you don't have out here, like a lot of Shipley's Donuts. I didn't have a chance to go there.
Yeah, Shipley's is a big chain. It kind of supplanted Dunkin' Donuts as the big chain down here. And then you've got what's the Krispy Kreme Krispy Kreme.
Oh yeah, I love Krispy Kreme. We got them right up right up the street there. I like them when they get hot off the conveyor belt.
Yeah, those are known to those of us with weight problems as fat pills.
Yeah.
But
I just can't turn it down, man. Now I wanted to know.
Yes.
I wanted one more thing about. I forget the character that said that when you took the candy bar and you bit it, and he goes, "Can you at least take the wrapper off?" Was that in the script, or was that your thing?
No, that was in the script, and that was one of the things that Michael and Stanley had me doing during the rehearsal. And back then I'd be in real trouble now because now they wrap those things in foil.
Oh yeah.
Back then it was actually wax paper, so it wasn't so bad. But they did do the concession that they opened it up and took the little cardboard stiffener out of it before I bit into it. Back then, if you remember, they put a cardboard stiffener behind the candy bar, and then they wrap it in the wax paper.
I remember that. Yeah.
And so when I first did it, I took a bite out of it. I could not pull that cardboard thing apart, so I pull it out, and half that cardboard sticking out of my mouth. So that's when they said, "Can we at least get this out of it?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." So,
I just thought that was a great scene, and so some things I wonder, it's like, okay, was that an ad lib thing, or did the kid come up with that, or was it scripted? I just, because I thought they were really clever,
You think the best line is what? I'm sorry.
The best line of the movie was ad libbed, and it was when Aaron or Ahmad's trying to catch a fly ball and it hits him in the groin and he's moaning on the ground, and they're all gathered around him, and the coach says, "Somebody get a stretcher," and you hear one of the kids in the background. It's Brandon actually. Said, "A stretcher for his balls?" And I mean that one cracks me up every time I hear it.
That was an ad lib by Brandon? Wow.
Yeah, that was an ad lib by Brandon. So.
That is cool.
You hear the kids, "Oh man, they got him right in the balls," and Vic's like, "Okay, we need a stretcher. We need a stretcher." And you hear, "A stretcher for his balls?" So.
What's amazing to me is that you guys change baseball movies, baseball comedies. After your baseball comedies after Bad News Bears would rip it off. I mean, the
Sandlot.
Yeah, if you look at
Sick Ball.
Yeah, but if you look at Major League, Wesley Snipes is playing Ahmad's character.
Right.
All this. I mean, they just steal it completely, which is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a winning, but Hollywood's always been that way. It still is. If you have a winning combo, you copy it.
Wow.
And if you run out of ways to copy it, then you just remake it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look at radio and all the Howard Stern ripoffs.
Yeah, I mean, variations on a successful theme, I guess, right?
Right.
Wow.
I mean, look at all the remakes in the last 5 years.
Isn't that amazing?
Yes, a rehash of everything, man.
Yeah, you run out of ideas, so you just rehash one.
Yeah, you talked about the Billy Bob Thornton version, and how I felt about it. What's funny is my son Blake was the last person cut for playing the Engelbert part.
Really? That's heresy.
It came down to him. And once again, it was weight. He just wasn't big enough for the part. But I'll never forget they were holding auditions at Richardson High School in Dallas, and I took he and my youngest boy Gary Jr. down, Gary was just the epitome of Tanner, and Blake was just like me. And so we're talking, and they saw the last name and said, "Are you related?" I said, "Yeah, well, that's me." And I said, "Well, heck, your dad can run through these lines with you. He knows them better than we do."
Wow.
So I'd be glad to try. And so I get the lines, I start reading. I'm like, "Oh, no. So there's no way we could, if they had us saying this type of thing back then, they would have all been in jail."
Wow.
You know, we could say the racist stuff and everything because honestly, people weren't that way
Right.
back then.
That's why it was funny.
You know, that's what's funny. That's what's funny about it. People weren't that way. You know, when Chris says all we have on this team is a bunch of and goes in that racial epitaph
Yeah.
and ends it and a booger eating spaz, people laughed because you just didn't say things like that.
Right.
You know, it seems now people take offense at that. So to me, that's much more likely to be said now that we're so politically incorrect than it ever was back then when we weren't so politically incorrect.
But the new one, but Gary, the new one is
But the new one, he said one of the lines had something to do with him. I'm going to tell my mom you were playing with my what? And I'm like, no, we would never, ever have. I mean, the ratings board would have shut them down.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, and plus it was.
And so,
go on.
No, so I mean, I was just shocked by it. It takes a lot to shock me. But not only did he not get the part, I never watched the movie after that. I just thought that's a little bit more. That's not what I want to be remembered for. Let's put it that way.
But they cut a lot of the stuff that was so edgy in your version. There's no more underage drinking or anything else. You know.
There's no more underage drinking. There's no more racial slurs or anything like that. But there's stuff like that.
Those were the old.
It's just
the old Bud bottles, weren't they? With the little.
Well, those were the what was the?
No, those are the pop tops.
You were drinking Ham's beer.
Was it Ham's?
Ham's.
It was Ham's. They came in those little green bottles that looked like beer barrels.
Yes. Ham's beer, which I think is long gone, right?
I've never seen it before, or since here in Texas. So,
wow.
My guess is it was back in the old days. You couldn't take Coors out of Colorado.
Wow.
Without special license. So, but the reason they chose those was those tops were easy to pull back, dump, put ginger ale in, and then reseal.
Okay, we're gonna kind of bring an end to the show. Unfortunately, that's my job. But the good news is we're gonna rebroadcast the show. So not only are we live from 9 to 11, or from 7 to 9, we're gonna be rebroadcasting from 9 to 11.
Wow. Hey.
Right.
But
it's a 4-hour show now.
It's a 4-hour show,
so
Gary.
If you wake up late, you can still listen to the show.
Your dulcet tones will be on the air long after we're done.
Now your family and friends can tune in to Chaotic Radio, www.chaoticradio.com, and listen to the Jeff Sargent Show.
With Janky and Dan the Man Rupp and our special cherished guest, Gary Lee Cavanero.
Very special.
Gary, thank you very much. Your stories were hilarious.
Thank you, guys.
And I want you to
truly
know
appreciate it.
Of the Jeff Sargent Show is unlike any other show. We don't copy anybody's show. We are totally original.
Except for yesterday, we copied the Black Lung Show because your voice was so screwed up.
We were horrible yesterday.
Jeff sounded like an elderly actress trying to come back in Hollywood.
Grovelly, cancerous voice yesterday.
I'm talking out of my stoma. So, Gary, thank you so much. Awesome, my friend. Thanks, Steve Joyner, for finding Gary for us.
Yes.
So, Gary and Steve, thank you so much, gentlemen. Gary, thank you for your stories. I didn't realize your dad was the Cavanero in the Kennedy books. That blows me away.
Well, that was him.
I taught high school history. You kind of shocked me this morning.
Gary is a part of history. You are a part of history, my friend.
Is your pop still with us?
No, he passed away about 14 years ago.
I'm so sorry. Well, but wait a minute. He lived to see the Oliver Stone movie?
Yes.
What did he think of it?
Not much.
It's hard to blow Patrick away with any facts because he's like an encyclopedia.
Gary, you've officially stunned me. I mean, I never even
Good
heard
for
of
you.
Yeah, no. Your family was friends with Jack Ruby. That blows me away. I can't wait to tell my brother Donald.
Man, anytime you come to California, let us know, and we'll get together and have some lunch or whatever.
Please, Gary, do this so we can hang and pick your brain for more stories.
Yes.
Okay.
You got some great stories, brother.
Thank you so much for doing the show. And take care.
You guys.
No, Gary, thank you.
You
wow.
too.
Bye, sir.
Thank you.
Y'all take
Good
care.
luck on
Bye-bye.
your.
Bye-bye.
Bye, thank you. I love that. Y'all take care. That's so Southern. I love it.
Yeah. he's
Yeah.
got
Bye-bye.
that
Bye,
little
Gary. Thank
Southern
you.
slang, you know.
It is. It's lilting, but I mean, people don't realize how cool the South is. I mean, I drove through Dallas years ago, and Donald wanted to hit a donut place. There was some donut place.
It's called Shipley's Donuts.
Yes.
And we have our friend Eric Shipley, who
Is
lives
he
right here in
running the
Ontario.
Shipley Donut?
The Shipleys, they ran the Gallery Theater down in Ontario.
You know what? I went to a Shipley's. Donald wanted to hit a Shipley's. They close every day at 2. We got there on this road trip when I was working on my first book. We got to Shipley's, and we come in, and I told Donald I'll buy a dozen donuts. I wanted to hear it because I've been listening to them since we left Upland about how great Shipley's was. And the lady looks over and she goes, "Shug, I'm so sorry. We're closed. We can't sell you no donuts." And I said, "Oh, damn it. He's been talking about him forever." And she goes, "I can't sell you no donuts, but we can give them to you free." Who does that?
I know.
That's Southern hospitality, ladies and gentlemen.
Hospitality.
We've
We've got 2 minutes left. Let's
2
promote,
minutes to break.
Let's promote tomorrow's show.
The Beer Brew Witches.
The Brew
Yes.
Witches with
The-
lovely Julia Matilunius.
Julia Metalunius, the lovely enchantress, and 2 of her beautiful brewing sisters will step into the studio
Yes.
and mesmerize us not only with their beauty, but with their beer.
With their beer secret.
Can we drink on the air? Is that allowed?
I don't know. All the other shows. I know the Black
they
Lung.
bring-
The Black Lung Show does, doesn't they?
Somebody tell the brew.
And so does the Zig Zone.
So does the
I'm
Zig
sure you
Zone.
can.
Tell the brew riches if they feel like bringing their beer, we feel like drinking it.
Yeah.
Except for me.
Except for Dan, of course.
'cause
and
Dan
my
will-
designated
Dan
driver.
will die.
My designated driver, the great Jeff Sargent.
That's like giving a dog chocolate.
Yeah.
Why doesn't
By
Dan
the way,
breathe
why
in?
do you liken our producer, the great Dan the Man Rupp, to a dog? Why is that your go-to creature for our beloved friend?
Because he could do it. It's his show.
It's Jeff Sargent's world. We're just living in it, Danny boy.
Oh boy.
Okay, so starting tomorrow, we're going to start taking a little couple commercial breaks. And
Wow, we're legit. We're legit. We got commercials.
Starting now, we are going to go run for another 2 hours
Yes.
replaying the show. So
Today's show?
it's going to be
or-
today's show.
Wow.
So it's a 4-hour show. So it's, so we don't have anybody following us. So
Except us.
Dutchie gave
We're
me
following
the-
ourselves.
Yeah, I know. Dutchie gave me the permission and showed me how to do it, so I'm gonna.
Yeah,
give
thank
it
you,
a shot.
Dutchie. Wow. We're legit, people.
Well,
4
we
hours
should
of,
post that on our Facebook page.
4 hours of Jeff, Dan, and me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wake your ass up, Inland Empire. And you.
And you
Dan-
can watch, what about yesterday's show, the following show? So tomorrow when we do our show, they can watch today's show as
The
well.
Brew Babes are coming in tomorrow. The Brew Witches.
Yes.
And by the way, the fun doesn't end. I mean, it'll end for Jeff and I. You're about to have your tousled locks felt and chopped by the lovely Betty Beware.
Oh yeah, little shoppy hairdos.
Wow, give her
If
a
you want to
love.
watch Dan get his hair cut, go to Little Shop of Hairdos downtown Upland and watch Dan.
If you are a hair fetishist, go watch the beautiful Betty Beware.
Betty Beware Give Dan a haircut.
Chop Dan's lovely locks.
Oh, we gotta go. Goodbye, everybody.
Wake your ass up, people. See you tomorrow with the Brew Witches. Good night. Enjoy your haircut from Betty Boyle, Danny.
We're on replay now.
Why the doorbell? What the hell? It is a sick doorbell. What a great show today. I didn't think it would be. You know what?
We did some good interviews.
If the mic is still on, I mean every word. I need to find my